had several critics comment under my posts, things that are not even related to Charlie Kirk, about my views about Charlie Kirk or my support about Charlie Kirk. And some of them have had extensive walls and walls of text accusing me of things and trying to trap me in some kind of corner. And I don't have, it's against my community guidelines to even engage in bad faith discourse. I absolutely encourage people to disagree respectfully and to consider, being open to challenging my perspectives and their own. And that's what good faith discourse is all about. So I'm on this live to say, if you feel like you want to challenge me on my support or my thoughts and opinions about Charlie Kirk, go on ahead. You can leave a comment and do so as long as it's respectfully done. Now, I know there's a lot of emotions one way or the other, right? People who felt offended by Charlie Kirk that want to call him all these names, calling him a bigot in one way or the other, or the people who are mourning Charlie Kirk and feel he was martyred. There's definitely a lot of grief and a lot of despair for those people. And so we need to try to empathize with each other. We need to validate each other's feelings, but that doesn't mean we need to agree with what each other is saying, right? So we can agree to disagree, and that is absolutely okay. But the problem is we can't agree to the truth. We can't agree to what is factual. And that's where the miscommunication happens. So I have looked up so many of these clips and these quotes that have been taken out of context, but I don't know that all of you have. And I don't know who's watching, but there are some people who are trying to misconstrue what he said intentionally. There are some people who aren't intentionally doing it, and for whatever reason, they just are stuck on their understanding of the quote or the clip, and they don't get it, either because they don't have the capacity to get it, and I'm not trying to be pejorative here, but some people just do not have the capacity to comprehend a certain point or argument, right? Like it's just, some people are at different levels. And so they run with their understanding of a thing. And then there are some people who miss the whole point or inadvertently misunderstand the point. And so those people are probably more likely to correct or revise their assumptions, because you can say, oh, wait, look at it again, and then tell me if you still think that that's what he was trying to say. Like, can you not understand that he was actually trying to say something else and you totally took the wrong interpretation here? So for example, the one that comes up a lot is about him being a racist. And one of the comments about how Black women don't have like the mental capacity to have the job or something. I forget the exact quote, but I did look it up, and the full context of that was he was talking about 4 specific women. In this case, they were 4 specific Black women that he was talking about, and one of them was Michelle Obama. And you may disagree with them. You may think that they are wonderful people who are very highly intelligent and who deserve, the power and prestige that they have, but just make sure that you get the facts right, that he was not saying that all Black women are ignorant, which is how it seems like it was purported that he was saying that, which he was not. He was just saying these specific women he felt this way about. So rightly or wrongly, agree or disagree with his point, that's what he was saying. Now, it is so easy to cut and paste clips and quotes to suit a narrative. And it's the same with statistics too, right? We've been dealing with this with statistics well before social media came onto the picture. So people can take a statistic out of context and spin it any which way they want. And so you have to really understand how it works and what it actually means given the facts. And social media and just online media in general has made it so difficult to do that. People are just sensationalizing things based on these little snippets that can be completely misrepresenting someone's point. So no, I am not an MD. I have a PhD in counseling, which is a specialized PhD in counseling in marriage, couples, and family counseling. So I am a retired mental health professional, a retired marriage and family therapist. I work as a coach, life coach, dating coach, relationship coach now. But my doctoral dissertation was on sexual abuse, and my specialty, other than relationships and marriage, was in sexual trauma recovery. So now I focus mostly on coaching singles, mostly, not exclusively, but mostly singles who are looking for their ideal match for marriage. I work mostly with conservatives, traditionalists, Christians, but I work with anybody, but mostly I work with that group of people or those groups of people. I am a conservative now, or conservative-ish, I really call it, because I was a liberal, like a classic liberal before, and now I support Donald Trump and MAGA, and I don't really like labels. I'm a registered independent, but I definitely feel like there is so much emphasis on the in-group and the out-group, and so much hate everywhere, where my focus is mainly on right and wrong, good and evil. And I feel like there's obviously a lot of that across the board in any group, but it is very dense in the leftist group. Like the whole mob of leftists seem to be very afflicted with psychopathology and evil intention. So just to give you a little background about me, if you are not aware of who I am Taylor, Dr. Taylor Burrowes formally. I am married. I have a baby that's just over 1 year old. I am 46, so I hope that covers it. But yeah, let's see if there are any other comments here. What made me wake up? Gosh, I don't know if it was one thing. I retired, and what frustrated me the most was my profession, right? Mental health is still messed up. But even back then, when I was coming to that crossroads where I felt like I was ready to leave the profession, even after everything that I did to achieve, the position that I was in, I realized that the profession was going woke. And because I wasn't really aware of where I stood, really, like I didn't even think that I was a feminist. I didn't think that I was necessarily woke or anything like that. I don't know if I was woke, but definitely more of a classic liberal. And I voted for Obama, but I don't think I voted for Biden. I can't remember now, but it was so hard to make a statement about what was right or wrong or healthy and unhealthy. And I'm a very outspoken person. I always have been. I get that from my father. I get that from my mother too, but my father was more political. And when I felt like I had to be silent about my opinions because I was offending people, and that was seen as hate speech or violence or, inappropriate, that's when I started to wake up. I started to realize that this isn't really about freedom of speech. This is about controlling your behavior and about allowing these, in this particular context, my clients who were clearly unhealthy, enabling them. And that frustrated me so much because the profession was really going towards tying your hands behind your back as a therapist, because you had to enable and allow people's subjective truth and experience. And instead of saying, well, this is unhealthy, or let's work towards what our goals are to become healthy and agreeing to those, it was a lot of sort of treading water in this space of validation, right? So that's what started to wake me up, is being stuck in that context and recognizing that I just couldn't exist in that space anymore, because it was misaligned with my core values. And so then that caused me to change everything, right? Like once you retire from your career after getting PhD and 2 licenses and being on all these boards and stuff, it's a big awakening, a big sort of paradigm shift. And so I did a deep dive on myself and what I stood for and what was working and what was not working and what felt like I wasn't myself. And I basically just stepped outside of the entire community that I was in, because I realized I was just existing in this sort of cluster of people that I didn't really respect because I didn't have the same values. And when I stood back and saw that, I hibernated, and I just said, I need to really clarify where I stand and then find people who align with that. And that's what I did. So I hibernated for like 2 years while I was working on my online business. And then I left the country that I was in, and I started traveling with my now husband. And I really focused on that. I focused on finding my ideal match for marriage because I wanted to have children. And like I said, I'm 46 and I have a 1-year-old. So I was a late bloomer and I needed to get things right. I knew I was at that stage where it's like, okay, I can't make any more mistakes in my life. I can't like not know who I am and not know what matters to me and not know what my values are. So I need to get clear, and this is serious business. So I did that all between like 37 and 39. And then my husband and I have been together since then. So I hope that clarifies things. I was a therapist. Let's see. Do you change into a mermaid? Oh my gosh. I don't know who y'all are, but I do know that Jesus loves you more than you can ever know. This world will lead to death. This is our sign to go to Jesus. You won't regret it. Trust me. Well, interestingly enough, let's talk about that for a second. My background in my country, my culture, everyone's Christian. Not anymore, but that's how it was when I was growing up. And I went to church, I was in Catholic school. I had like a calling to be a good Christian. But then things changed as I started to grow up, and I didn't really like church. And then I moved to the States, and I realized I don't fit in with the different sects of Christianity here. And I find it very unwelcoming and unfamiliar, or I did. And so I didn't really classify myself as a Christian here because I feel unwelcome. People will yell at me for, I got pregnant before my husband and I married, but the whole intention was to get married. We just wanted to focus on trying to have the baby first because it's hard to do any of those things, to do them all in a particular order. That was the order that we felt comfortable in. But anyway, I got a lot of heat from Christians because I was living with my husband and I got pregnant before we technically got married. And for example, that's just one thing. And some of my beliefs go against theirs, like cohabitation and gosh, I can't think of some of the other ones, but I know there are more. And so I just didn't call myself a Christian since I moved here. And since the Charlie Kirk assassination, and I think the catalyst that he's created, just this huge impact in regards to religious and Christian renaissance, I think is the best word, right? And so the other day I saw that Erica Kirk has this website where you can sign up to learn the Bible in 1 year. And I've never really had like an interest in learning the Bible or getting really specific about what the Bible says, and just seeing Charlie Kirk's debates and how he references the Bible was really inspiring, because I'm more of an intellectual and an academic, and I know lots of people, I'm not saying the Bible is not, it absolutely is, but there's something about the organized religion aspect of church and everything that puts me off a little bit. But I think if you have to kind of pick something and there's trade-offs, I would be willing to trade off my discomfort or lack of preference around that, just so that I can fully know what I'm talking about and really, I mean, I pray every day. I pray with my baby, and it's definitely something that is instilled in me on a personal level, but I don't have that faith-based community. And so I'm thinking that that's the direction that I want to go in. So I signed up for this Bible365.com website with her and her team, and they send, starting January 5th, they send like Bible verses so that you can read the Bible in a year. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And she's very impressive as a woman, I think it made a lot of sense that Charlie Kirk married someone 5 years older than him, because he's just so ahead of him, his age, right? That he needed a really mature, grounded, intellectual woman. And that's just my opinion. I feel like the more intelligent the man, I advise men to seek parity in regards to intelligence, not because you want a female version of yourself. You definitely do not. She needs to be rooted in all of the other complementary aspects that create that polarity between man and woman. But you just cannot have someone that's like too beneath you in that regard, because they need to understand you and they need to get you and you need to feel connected. You have to have that intellectual chemistry. You can't just sort of outsource that to someone, I don't know, at work or a buddy or something. Like, you need to have that connection at home. Like I said, you need to feel like your spouse gets you. If you don't feel like they get you, there's only a matter of time that that's going to implode, in my opinion. But she is very smart. She has a Juris Master's and she's working on her doctorate in some kind of Bible studies. And she was an NCAA basketball player. She was, what else? A realtor, a Miss Arizona. So many things. She's very well-rounded. And now she's the CEO of Turning Point USA. I think she's going to just move mountains. I like the clip of them where they say that she's the more conservative one. I can totally see that Charlie Kirk was actually the moderate. That makes total sense to me in their regard. Like, I can see the dynamic playing out, and that now people, I mean, I'm smiling about the good stuff, but I'm absolutely in tears about the tragedy of his assassination. I mean, gosh, it was really intense, obviously, but I think the silver lining is that they unleashed something that I think they didn't expect. And I've even gotten into debates, or maybe not even gotten into debates, but people have criticized the fact that, why are you martyring this person, and da 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 da. It's like, you cannot control it sometimes. It's not just, something you decide and you run with and you spin. It was a visceral reaction by the world. So if you, and I'm not talking to particularly you, but whoever it does apply to, if you didn't feel it, I would question, why aren't you moved to greatness by this? Because it's different with, the leftists, how they responded to George Floyd. I don't want to get too much into that, but the difference, what I'm saying, is that there was a lot of destruction that happened after that event, right? So that was not the same. The response to this is rising to the occasion, being a better person, and extending love and creation of different things, right? Like, it's just begun. But you can, if you're not seeing that distinction, I think there's a disconnect happening, and I urge you to really do some deep self-reflection. And I'm not saying that from a biased position. I mean, I am biased, but I'm saying that from an objective stance because I self-reflect all the time. And when people are saying I'm being insensitive because Charlie Kirk, dehumanized all these people and dismissed like their existence, I've had this hard time trying to explain to people that there is a distinction, a very important distinction between a person's behavior or lifestyle or choices or actions and their essence as a human being, their soul, right? So especially if you know anything about Christianity, if you're a good Christian, that you can be redeemed. That your soul, like, you have free will. You can be forgiven by God and go into the afterlife with a fresh slate. But you have to come to terms with that. You have to come to terms with your choices and your sins. And pointing out the sin is not saying, I hate you and I want you to die. And that's how it's being interpreted. So either it's in bad faith, or it's someone who's just that ignorant that they're not understanding the distinction, right? So one of the two is happening. And when I talk to people who clearly have this pattern of debate that is in bad faith and actually depicts like some real, concerning behavioral patterns like that go towards the cluster B dark personalities, I just back away. I don't need to engage with those people, right? So I'm only interested in engaging with people who are open-minded enough and self-reflective enough and have enough intellectual integrity and enough wherewithal to have a respectful disagreement. And if, we might not be able to budge on our opinion, right? Like you might not be able to persuade me and I may not be able to persuade you, but as long as we do so respectfully, then that's fine. But it's this ad hominem and this attack, and you're just going for these personal things, and it's not okay. It's not okay. But anyway, I just did a video. I'll put it up on here. I recorded a video on TikTok, but I'll repurpose it on YouTube as well. I was just saying that we have to be careful about calling everything that we don't like hate speech, but that goes both ways. I agree with Candace Owens when she says that canceling Jimmy Kimmel for saying the wrong thing is going too far. I do think there are things that you shouldn't say and that shouldn't be covered under free speech. Like if you are threatening someone's life, if you are being abusive, if it is clearly violent and causing someone harm, that this is where it gets tricky, right? Like it's subjective. Like what is harmful to one may not be harmful to another. But if you can take it to the police and you can say, this person was harassing me, this person was threatening my life, that is not covered under free speech. But just saying something offensive should not be considered hate speech in that regard. So I think it's a slippery slope that we need to be very mindful of and not being hypocritical about just because they're saying the wrong thing about someone that we support. So, you have to have that level of intellectual integrity there. Let me look at some more comments or questions. I have values after no, I always had values. I was brought up with good values. I had a good home and a good family. I think the majority of my shift was in how I was helping people, right? Because social justice was always a big motivator for me, like getting into my profession as a trauma survivor. You can actually see my shift in values. Actually, if you look at my TEDx talk, I did a TEDx talk in 2014 about survivors of sexual abuse. And you can't really tell so much by the TEDx talk, to be honest. It's more in the actual dissertation. The conclusions and the slant in that was highly influenced by my university, by my doctoral program. And now I realize that there's a lot of indoctrination happening to and by left ideology in these higher education settings. And so my slant at the time was towards patriarchy is bad and corrupt and is causing all these bad things in society. Whereas now I see things differently. So that's the main thing that shifted, that started me waking up and seeing how absolutely there are some predatory men, and there have been all throughout history, but painting everybody with that same brush is unfair, and not seeing how the patriarchy, well, just a patriarch in general, is a very good thing when they're healthy, when they're stable, when they're good, when they have good character. They're actually very protective. And so we need to have a healthy patriarchy, and that oftentimes, we get into this femme-centric way of seeing the world, and that was passed down through my education. So being able to start to see it with less bias, because you don't even know you have a bias at the time, right? Because you're in like this institution, assuming you're having intellectual integrity, but then when you step out of it and you realize, okay, there is, some maybe unconscious things happening. Maybe it's not all intentional, but it's definitely a factor. So I have a big problem with a lot of therapists now being in that mindset and not seeing what's happening to them and how they're just advancing that perspective. And they're instilling that into clients. And I find it very dangerous. So on a systemic level, it's almost like I've turned a bit of a 180, and now I see how that systemic influence is causing a lot of the madness. And I mean that literally. I think the rise in mental illness is directly related to our education system and our mental health system shaping people towards madness. So they've lost touch with reality. And obviously social media has a huge contributing factor. So those elements just in and of themselves, and media being so sinister, politics, obviously, all those things combine to create the sort of cluster that we're in at this present time. What do you think of Dr. Dennis? I don't know that name. I'll have to look it up. Like, yes, 31 is not old. Having a baby at 40, technically I was like 2 months shy of my 45th birthday. That was pretty old, but I'm trying for number 2. So pray for me. I appreciate any prayers that I'm healthy, and if God blesses me, I can have another natural baby, because my baby was natural, not an IVF baby, although, no judgment there if you have IVF babies. But I thought it was going to be like this really scary, painful, horrible thing because of my age, and it was not. I had a very easy pregnancy, labor and delivery, and postpartum experience. I bounced back immediately. So, as long as you are taking good care of yourself, and obviously genetics have a part to play, and what God blesses you with, but you have a role too. And I actually put out a free guide on how to maintain your fertility into your 40s. So if you're interested, it also is generally about longevity and how to stay healthy and not look your age, right? I hope you think I don't look 46. So if you're interested in that, it should be linked. If you go to my About section at the top of my YouTube, there's a whole bunch of links. So one of them should be my fertility guide. And I share all of the stuff that I did and links to things if you're interested. Trump made a lot of people get involved in politics, which is good and bad. Let's see. Hello. I think I'm getting indoctrinated by my online community. I don't know if that's in jest, but I mean, I don't think that echo chambers are necessarily a bad thing. I think when you are surrounded by people who are healthy, that is the most important thing. So making sure that you're around healthy couples. You don't want to be around too many people that are, not that being single is a horrible thing, as long as they're a healthy single person and they share your values, they're marriage minded, or they're intentionally single, but they still live a life that promotes family values and being a good person and faith-based stuff, if that's what you're into. Sorry, I was just looking at some of these other comments. But yes, you could be in a community that is sort of a destructive echo chamber. So take a step back. If you want, follow in my shoes when I took a step back out of my community, and I realized for a while, not just like a couple hours, but like an extensive period of time, take a little bit of a hibernation, do some self-study, self-reflection, go deep into whatever calls you, whether that's religion, whether that's meditation, whether that's philosophy, reading. I think it just does a world of good to disconnect and look inside and really try to edify yourself from a more like self-directed way as well, especially if you're older and you've already been through a lot of different influences, right? And you kind of lost yourself in all of that noise. You read the Bible alone. God called you 5 years ago. I don't know what the appropriate saying is for that, but congratulations. Much love from Samoa. Hello, Samoa. Yes, that too. I like the idea, whatever works. And this was something that catalyzed me. So I'm running with it and telling people about it. Catchy title of my video. Thank you. Well, I did start there. It's the Sabbath right now, Dr. Taylor. Apologies. George Carlin, he will explain everything to you. Yeah, I haven't seen anything recently of his, but he is good. Amen. Hey there, so wonderful to see you. Pray at least once a day for God's guidance and trust that God will guide me, but I haven't found a church and I'm not sure I can find the path with the Bible. Yeah, I feel you about the church. I've been to many, and just plain and simply, I really like seeing someone like Charlie in his talks, how he just references the Bible and how he can just preach a sermon organically like that. To me, that is far more moving than any kind of rehearsed, scripted sermon in this sort of flat environment. Not all churches are like that, I'm not saying that, but I haven't ever really found one that consistently made me feel that, I don't know, I'm still on the lookout, put it that way. But there are times when I always usually cry. I have my emotions bubble up when I'm in church or when I'm singing, or I'm not a very good singer, so I usually hum. But in general, I think that it's far more powerful to me. This is my personal opinion. It's far more powerful to me to see it lived out loud in real life, organically. And yeah, I mean, whatever works for you. And yes. Hello. Thank you. Let's see. Is the mental health system cooked? I think there is a minority of people that are involved in mental health now that are truly healthy and stable and wise, objective and effective. I think the majority of people that are in mental health, I think it's oversaturated. I think everyone goes into mental health or psychology or counseling or whatever, and they have not done the necessary work. So I've talked to many people who, I don't know, kind of slide in, and they haven't had the extensive supervision or therapy themselves, and that really concerns me. Some of them have their own serious mental illnesses that are not even treated. That really concerns me. I know a lot of people go into it because they're trying to figure out their own experiences, and that's fine as long as you have learned, grown, and healed, right? But I don't think a lot of people do anymore, and that's very concerning. So I am worried. There is cause to be concerned. Vet your therapists or your coaches or whomever well. Do your due diligence, and if you don't know how to do that, somebody just came out with a new video, and he and I are going to do a follow-up video about how to vet online coaches or therapists exactly for this purpose. But Shravan, I don't know how to say his last name. I should ask him to pronounce it for me. But I shared, I don't know if I think I shared his video on my post section in my community section of my YouTube. But if not, I'll do it just to make sure you can connect with his channel and watch his video, because he did a really good job with that. I think he just posted it today or yesterday. All right. Your mom had you in her 40s. Yes, it happens. A lot of people can continue having children into their 40s, but to start having kids in your 40s is a whole nother issue. Yes, R.I.P. Charlie. Left or right? Yes, okay. Let's see. First time watcher, not a troll, but willing to learn. Bill Murray quote. Ah, very cool. Yes, that's an important quality to seek in people. I mean, obviously you need to figure out what you embody first, and then when you're vetting people, you have to make sure you're not coming from an entitled position, because if you're expecting certain things from other people but you do not embody those yourself, that is an entitlement, and that needs to be resolved. So good that you're willing to learn. And so seeking that in other people, friends, partners, what have you, that's a good place to start. Yeah, Charlie was the only one brave enough to speak the truth. I don't know if he was the only one, but he had a calling. He was, the word that has been used is anointed, and I do not refute that. I really wasn't that familiar with Charlie Kirk before this happened. I've actually been on a TPUSA podcast before. The Alex Clark, her podcast was called something else before, and now I've forgotten. But now it's called The Culture Apothecary. And I don't know how we got connected, but she invited me to be on her podcast, The Spillover. That's what it was, The Spillover. So not too long ago. It was when I was pregnant, actually. That was the first time I did a public appearance. And I was early pregnant, but some of the people in my community, they could tell. And they were like, "Are you pregnant?" So I knew it would come out. It actually was right around the time that I announced, so it was good timing. Anyway, I did that podcast, and that was the closest I got to TPUSA, and I'm here in Arizona. So I don't know if Charlie Kirk knew who I was. And I don't have any particular evidence of that, but I ended up getting invited onto Fox News, like the primetime, the national Fox News primetime with Jesse Waters. And I don't know who invited me on that. I don't know who suggested me. And I just feel like it had to be someone in media that threw my name out there. And it's something that has crossed my mind that maybe I was on his radar. But I just never quite connected with him. I've been kind of laying low because trying to get pregnant and then having the baby and everything. I've been really, really insular with my family, understandably. But yeah, I mean, since this happened, I've really taken a deep dive and looked into everything, and it was an involuntary, organic, visceral response, because my husband actually was the first person to be like, "Charlie Kirk got shot." Oh, that's right. We live, I guess they I don't know where they live exactly, but I don't think we live that far from each other. And we were walking one day, my husband and I, maybe with the baby at the time, I don't know. And my husband was like, "Oh, that's Charlie Kirk and his wife, his family." And I was like, "Who?" I'm like not that up to speed on politics and stuff. He's like, "Yeah, Charlie Kirk, you know him, the TPUSA guy." And I was like, "Oh, TPUSA." Like I knew TPUSA, but I never really knew Charlie Kirk like that well. And I don't think we waved or whatever, but he didn't, obviously know who we were. But that's the association that I had to Charlie Kirk. And so when he was assassinated that morning, my husband was like, "Charlie Kirk just got shot." I was like, "What? Send me whatever." And like, "Who is he again?" So he had to tell me that story to remind me who he was. And then I saw the video. And then I was just in a tailspin and doing like all the research I could, and just the emotions started bubbling up, and I'm like, "Oh, this can't be real." And it was one of those things where you wanted to press rewind, you wanted to just go back and, make God intervene. And I think obviously there was just didn't have the outcome that we wanted at the time. And I think there is a bigger purpose here, but you just wanted it to not be true. And it was very hard to believe that could be, that could be real, that could happen, that someone could do that. Despite people feeling offended by what he said, whoever it was, responsible, it doesn't matter whether it's Israeli influence, whether it's trans, whether it's leftist, whatever it is, the fact that someone would stoop to that level is just terrifying and horrifying and absolutely gut-wrenching. The evil that it takes. And I'm not saying that's the only evil that we ever experience. We experience evil all over the world. And there were, school shootings, and there were murders, and there were wars, and there were this, and there were that. Like, there's tons of evil. But there was just something about that, because we all saw it in real time on our Twitter feed or wherever we saw it. And yeah, right on the tails of Arena's gruesome murder, there was just something catastrophic with how everything landed. that last week, however long ago it was now. And something erupted from that. So, yeah. Anyway, so many emotions, but I think from this horrific trauma, I believe that a lot of good things are going to happen, and we have to focus on that, because focusing on the evil part, just getting overwhelmed with the grief and with the fear, that is not going to be effective. So we need to come together, and I just mean that like spiritually, as good people, and we need to magnify goodness in the world. We need to defeat evil on like whatever level, just a person to person level. Just do the right thing, be a good person, and perpetuate that as much as you can in life. That is enough of a purpose to have. So it's I'm just reading some more. George Carlin is deceased. Is this thread about his lies? No, I was talking about the lies that people were telling about Charlie Kirk. So I talked about this in the beginning, his beliefs about, or there's the snippets that you hear about him being a racist, or him being a Zionist, or him being this and that, or in the way that people are framing the quotes, that they are misrepresenting him and taking it out of context. And so whether it's intentional or not, it is not accurate. So you have to do your own research and understand and comprehend. Like literally, when I say understand, I don't mean that figuratively, I mean that literally. You have to comprehend what he was saying. And if you are not sure if you comprehend what he was saying, ask, inquire, have your own conversations with people, because his intelligence was off the charts. And I think a lot of people are just not getting it. In that particular one that I referenced earlier, just to catch you up, I was talking about the one about Black women, and what he said was about four specific Black women, and one of them was Michelle Obama, one of them was Joy Reid, and I don't know a lot about all of these women, but whether you agree with him or not, I'll just reiterate, he was not saying all Black women are. He was saying he felt these four Black women were not, exceptionally intelligent, and I forget the exact terminology that he used, but basically saying like they took somebody else's spot or something like that. So, I think the other reference was about the Black pilot when it comes to the racist remark. And that was taken out of context because he was saying that affirmative action now gets people to wonder if someone is qualified in their job. That is a completely coherent and objective thought to have. He was not saying, I think that person is dumb because they're Black. Like, that's very different context. And so misconstruing that shows low intelligence, low comprehension. It just does. If you do not see the distinction, don't be in the conversation. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not what he was saying. And people are running with it as, he's a bigot, he's a racist, he's this. No, the affirmative action does make you think. Just like there was a woman, right? Like there was a woman who was she was an employee of some, or maybe a few women, I don't remember exactly, on an airline, and there was some kind of disrepair, right, that happened, and maybe there was a fault in the airplane or something, and then we found out it was a bunch of women that were hired. And so it could be anybody, whether they were a minority, a race, or a female, or this or that. It could be anybody, but you're going to start to think, did this person earn their job because of meeting some quota or something like that, right? So anyway, let's see. No, I wanted to write it that way so that I would get a mixture of people. Some people would assume I was talking about you're lying about Charlie Kirk, and some people would assume he said lies. So I wanted to capture both audiences. Dr. Taylor is based. Win for the algorithm. Love it. Don't forget to subscribe. I am just trying to build prioritize my YouTube channel now, because I am fully monetized, which is great, but I have been slowly growing my channel over the course of 8 years. And now that the baby we're kind of settled in a little bit, I'm gonna start to figure out like a proper studio, and I'm gonna get back to like proper horizontal videos very soon. We're moving, so we're moving into a new apartment that will allow me to have more of a set, literally a set. So that will be really nice, and I'm excited to give more time to making videos for my YouTube community. So make sure to subscribe and stick around. And some things I'm a little bit different than most creators. I have a broader scope, so I'm not just singularly focused, if you can tell. I put on my description psychology, relationships, fertility, and culture. So this would fall under the culture, although I've probably touched on every single angle in this live as it is. But anyway, welcome. Wednesday night church is best. Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll check that out. Holy Spirit equals love, power, sound mind. Have I encountered a witch or demon? Yes, absolutely. Many. In my line of work, I was fighting evil often because I'm very outspoken and because I shine a very bright light. I am, definitely someone that gets targeted, and I have to do my own sort of cleansing and detoxing and protection stuff, so that I can protect my space and stay safe. And yeah, it's a reality. If you don't believe in that stuff, that's your choice. But there is evil in the world, and you have to protect yourself from it. Hello from Austin, Texas. I've never been to Austin, and I would love to go. I have a lot of friends there. Charlie was goodness, yes. R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. I heard that noise and my stomach nodded. Yes, it has taken me to the sound of bombing. I heard live and yes. Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't know your experience. Your experience is unique, and I wouldn't be able to relate to that. But the noise, I mean, it was just one single shot. It's so crazy to think that this was a successful assassination from one single shot. Yeah, intense. There's a lot of messages being held for review. I'm kind of glad. It was really horrifying. Praying for peace, absolutely. Okay, focus on the goodness. Yes. Hello. Lots of highs. I'm so glad that I'm connecting with some new people as well. What did he say about the Second Amendment? He never said anything wrong ever. Hate trolls, not people. I did not know Charlie, but I explained that. Join the live late. What's the topic on? Can anyone fill me in? Do you disavow all political violence? Do I disavow all? I feel like that's a trick question. Violence. Let's just focus on violence for a second, because I can speak to that. I don't believe in a meek defense. I believe that goodness, to be a true servant, and a good person who is fighting evil, you have to be a warrior. And when it comes to it, you need to slay evil, right? And so I do think that there is self-defense, bearing arms, like all that kind of stuff. I think there's a place for that, but you have to be on the right side of that. You can't just be violent for violence sake or for the wrong reasons. You can't be unstable. There's lots of extenuating circumstances that make it inappropriate, but I do not believe in meek Jesus. I don't believe in that, if that answers your question. I absolutely believe that any death or violence or tragedy to anyone is deplorable. I am not just saying that Charlie's was the only one. What I am saying is that there was something different about the event. And if you do not connect to that, You know, that's your right, but I would question why are you disconnected from it? Because I do think that there is divine intervention here. It's just my belief. And I don't think it's contrived. I don't think it's manufactured. I think it is an organic, spiritual impetus, catalyst, right? And it is galvanizing me, catalyzing me to speak up and to do things, to create. And that's what is so important about it, is that it has a good ripple effect. It has this power for people to wake up in a good way, not be destructive, not turn to violence, not chaos, but constructive, effective, productive building, creation, bonding, rising up in not disorder, but in some kind of cohesive connection that transcends things like country, race, you know, there's just something very powerful going on. Do you think there was more that went into Charlie Kirk's death that people don't know about? Well, I do think that Candace Owens is gonna dig until she finds some concrete stuff here. So I have faith that she's gonna do a really good job, and I am stuck to the TV when her show is on, because, you know, not everything, she doesn't know everything. That is, you know, some of it is not gonna turn out to be true, but she's going to go through it. And I think it's constructive to listen to what she has to say. And I think there's a lot of truth to her concerns. And there's definitely, it's more complex, I think, than people want it to be. And it makes sense that people want it to be simple and tied up with a nice little neat bow. And that is nice and comfortable, but I'm sure that it's not that simple. I am watching, yes, the Charlie Kirk Memorial tomorrow, absolutely. Have you ever studied Alice Miller or Thomas Saz? Don't know how to say that. Alice Miller sounds familiar. I don't know, can't think of anything specific, but I can look that up at some point. Thank you. Imagine children getting, yeah, definitely not a good thing, a tragedy. I'm sitting in my front yard. Whoa, okay. He never said anything wrong. That's hilarious. Well, what is wrong? What is wrong to say? That's the question. Did he say anything that should have been scrutinized? Absolutely. Absolutely, he did. But did he say anything evil? No, I don't think so. Not anything that I've heard yet. The things that are being used against him, again, are being misconstrued and taken out of context from what I can see. Extenuating is like context, basically, like different contexts that can rationalize or justify things. So extenuating circumstances usually means you have to see the bigger picture and figure out the other factors involved, because it's not so cut and dry. Deplorable, yeah, just to be very simple, very, very, very bad, right? A deplorable state is very, very, very bad. Contrived is manufactured, so it's kind of made up or forced. Jesus was surrounded by the meek. Yes, I'm not saying there's a place for that. There's a place for meekness. And I think meekness in itself is misunderstood. But when I'm saying people, I don't believe in the meek Jesus, I am talking about like a Jesus that is passive, right? So I do not believe that if you were a good person, you have to be passive and enable people and just let things go and don't say anything. That is so unhealthy. And I can tell you firsthand, secondhand, in my work, if a child has been brought up with that style of parenting, they have a higher likelihood of lots of pathologies. So people need boundaries, people need consequences. And in this life, we need consequences. And if you don't, you're gonna get people who go off the deep end and do a lot of horrible things. Galvanize. Galvanize also means catalyze, which means to spur something significant, like to inspire, I guess is the simplest way to say it, to inspire. Cohesive is things that go together well. So a cohesive argument is one that makes sense to you because it's organized, it's well organized, and everything ties together. Lots of questions, I kind of like them. But Danny, you're a very, you seek knowledge, so that's a good trait to have. The real question that no one asks is why. Why was he killed? Who benefits? Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think the narrative that Candace Owens is digging into is fascinating, and not in a good way, obviously, but there are some definitely, I think there could be some chess being played, put it that way. We need more protection for schools, absolutely, 100%. And that's what Charlie said too. Charlie said that you needed armed people or guards at school in order to protect our children. So I think someone criticized him saying that he didn't care about the murders at school or something. Oh yes, it was the Second Amendment thing, right? So that quote was misconstrued as it was unfortunate to accept these deaths of children, that it was just a necessary thing that happened. And it was sound very flippant the way that it was spun. But what he was saying was, just like we accept that there are vehicular manslaughters or DUIs that result in deaths of people, that 50,000 people die in automobile accidents a year. We still drive cars, we're not outlawing cars. So he was drawing the parallel between owning guns, having guns, the right to bear arms, and having a car. And it's a logical argument. So he was saying that we need to protect children. That was the second part of his comment, was that we need to protect children, that the difference in all of these cases of violence in different contexts and different venues was that they got protection, like in airports or in courts or wherever, that you ended up having better security. And so he was saying what we need, the better intervention, is to focus on protecting those environments from outside violent perpetrators. So that makes much more sense, right? Hopefully you see that it is a logical argument. Another Texan, hello from Texas. I'm not in Texas, I'm in Arizona. I think you are minimizing his young white male audience and how what he said rang in their ears. I don't know what you mean by that. Like, we cannot control how other people misinterpret us. We can do our best to be clear and concise, and I think he did that. I do my best. I still work on being clear and making sure my intent is understood, but trust me. I mean, I honestly, I feel like everyone should take a stint at being a content creator so that you can experience how nuts it is to say something and then all these people take it the wrong way. It is an eye-opening experience. You just do not control how people can take things. So, I mean, you can do your best, but everyone has their responsibility, and you cannot carry the responsibility for everyone. Definition of meek is those who have weapons but do not use them. Okay, so again, I still think that you can use a weapon. There are times when you can use a weapon and you're not a good person, right? Like, I think that it's important to fight evil, and sometimes that requires you to protect yourself, defend yourself, and some lives will be lost in that process. And the point is to not have to do it. We want to settle things without violence, which is what Charlie was doing, trying to settle things without violence. And we're responding without violence here. So we're not creating chaos or destruction or anything like that. people who are moved by his assassination, right? So we're not solving it with violence, but somebody solved their issue with violence, and that is what is evil. But if there comes a time when you have to bear arms in order to defend yourself, some people might believe you just let it happen and don't defend yourself, and that's your choice. But I do not believe that in that philosophy. And again, I am not a quote unquote born again Christian in an American sense. So I'm not an academic Christian. I don't know all the details, but just from my interpretation of Christianity and the way that I live my life from a moral standpoint, I believe that you can be a warrior for Christ. Like you can be, and that doesn't mean you are violent and it's not like Antifa. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you're not going to be, your goodness is not going to be used against you in a way that you're going to be passive and enabling evil, if that makes sense. That's really the cut and dry of it. So many funny comments. Anything else? I feel like it's time for me to go home and be with my family. Yes. Charlie Kirk was misunderstood. Yes. Second Amendment thing was not misconstrued. Yes, absolutely. It was misconstrued. Silas has donated $5 USD. I don't know if that's real, but if it is, thank you. Can't please everyone. No, you can't. Yes, I am very blessed and very happy. And that doesn't mean that life is easy, but I see all my blessings and I count them every single day. Empathy does make people weak. No, that was also misunderstood, misconstrued, whatever you want to call it. I also criticize and scrutinize the way empathy is misused. So that is the semantics part of the issue, whether you're calling it empathy or sympathy or compassion. Like a lot of that is just semantics, which is just I'm anticipating the guy asking, what does that mean? It means the way you use words. They can be interchangeable, and people don't agree. So when it comes to empathy, what I focus on is intellectual empathy. So it's not necessarily you have to feel the same way as someone else. Empathy, to me, the truest part of empathy is being able to intellectually understand a person's point of view. So if you can't understand being in the position that Charlie was in, or Charlie's family was in, or whatever, like if you can't understand that it was evil, that it was unnecessary, that it was just, I think the people that argue that talk about how I am not empathizing with their position because they feel dehumanized by Charlie. And I said, no, I do understand. I understand that you were offended by what Charlie said. And I can understand how you felt offended by that, coming from your perspective. I can absolutely put myself in that position. But what I disagree with, and that's different, I can disagree with you, but still empathize with your position and understand where you're coming from. I disagree that that's objectively true. I think that you are interpreting something and you're attaching to your understanding of a thing that is inaccurate. And so that's very different. So I believe that a lot of times empathy is misused, and it creates like this whole thing I was talking about in the profession of mental health. It creates like the system that people are just coddling everyone and just false empathy. That's what he was talking about. He was really talking about false empathy, but he's not here to clarify with me. That's just my interpretation of it. But he absolutely, he wasn't standing against being compassionate to people, right? So that's what he was trying to say, is that it's really not empathy, it's sympathy, or maybe it's not even sympathy, it's compassion. And people are just using this quote against him to say, I'm not going to have empathy for you because you didn't want to have empathy for me. But that's not what he was saying. It's hot down here, Charlie. No, Gosh, that's awful. I don't even mean to laugh at that. I just was starting to read it thinking of something else, and then I thought, I think that was pejorative. So Charlie is way up in heaven. Absolutely, he's way up in heaven. He's being celebrated. He is being celebrated, not because he died, like people that celebrate his death, but he is being celebrated as a good Christian and a man who was martyred, and the good that he's done, and he well deserved it. So I know that he has been embraced where he is in heaven. So definitely. When I was a kid, 80% of our teachers were armed, even 72-year-old. Wow. Wow. It says empathy implies you know how someone feels. He prefers sympathy and compassion. Right. But I even disagree with him there. I think empathy is not just about feelings, like I said. So I think, this is another rabbit hole, but not to tangent, but I think a lot of the distinction here is between how women apply it and how men apply it. And I think a lot of times people discount or dismiss the masculine version of things, and men are actually the most emotionally intelligent sex. I think women are the most emotional, but men are more emotionally intelligent because they're able to take perspective easier. They don't let their emotions cloud their judgment, and they are more emotionally disciplined overall. There's obviously lots and lots of exceptions, but in general, I think we could learn a lot from each other, and both need both, but I do think that the masculine side of empathy is minimized, and this overly emotionally reactive version of emotional intelligence is emphasized, causing this sort of misconception of what empathy should be. And it goes back to therapy. Therapy is feminized. Therapy is not working in an integrated way with the right balance of masculine and feminine influences. It is a highly feminized construct. So it needs an overhaul. Quiet, gentle, and easily imposed on submissive. Exactly. I do not see that being a mandate to be all the time. When appropriate, you can be in that position, but it's not, to me, it's definitely not a mandate to be like that overall. His negative rhetoric incited violence, though. No, it really didn't. Do you know what incited means? Because to say that people that maybe not be that smart, or people that were already sort of predisposed to violence, misunderstood his words and used it against, like, for their own purposes, that's not incitement. So look up what incitement means if you're going to accuse someone of inciting violence. A lot of comments. Yes, Charlie was promoting thinking for yourself, rationally and logically. Back yourself with facts, not feelings. Prove me wrong. I'm learning from Charlie now, and he's no longer here in flesh. I'm learning from him how to be a better speaker and debater, and obviously a better Christian. So, he's made his mark on so many people now. So many more people. He made his mark on so many people already, but now even more people are being positively impacted by him. Can you tell us something good that actually Charlie Kirk did that was benefiting all the citizenship of the United States? Yes, so many things. He was able to use his intelligence and his knowledge and his passion and his faith to create good things like that. Like I said, like, that is the simplest purpose that one needs to have, is to be a good person and to propagate more goodness in the world. And he stood up for what he believed and these Christian values. He created TPUSA. Gosh, what were all the things that he accomplished by 20 years old, I mean, he did so many things. He didn't drink, and he, prioritized his work ethic and fighting for all of these causes that he believed wholeheartedly in, and creating this type of community. So, getting married and having children and raising them in that capacity, that is a legacy in and of itself. But he did more than that. He was so impactful, and going to all these college campuses and speaking to people in person with a microphone, face to face, having these conversations. That is unheard of these days. People are not doing that. People are just keyboard warriors on the other side. All of these things create ripples of change and show us how things can be done effectively, non-violently. I mean, think of all the leaders in the world in our history books that were spoken about like that. And, it's all controversial, but just you think of who comes to mind when you think of who was a historical figure that you felt contributed to the world and created good things and accomplishments. What did they do? What were the examples of things that they did? A lot of times it's really just having a good character and not letting yourself sell out, and standing up for what you believe in and fighting for it, having causes. And whether you have an organization or you speak publicly, it's about spreading that word. And that's what Charlie did every single day of his life. A lot of hate out there. Yes. Have a good night. Thank you for joining me. I've gotten 63, 53? I can't see that well. 53 people on here. Let me see. I don't know how far I am down the line of comments, but like I said, it's not semantics, sweetie. It's common decency, kindness, empathy. I don't think you understood what I was saying. I was saying that the difference between empathy, sympathy, and compassion is mostly semantics. The disagreement about it is mostly a semantics issue, that people use these words interchangeably. That's what I'm saying. So absolutely, it's about common decency, kindness, all of those things. But the word that we use to describe it is often not the point. The point is that you are a good person and that you are treating each other with respect and kindness. And if you are able to see or feel or think, whichever one you want to refer to, from the other person's position and treat them like a fellow citizen of the world, no matter who they are, that's what matters. And when you can do that, you don't celebrate someone's death or pour salt on the wound, right? And I think what happened was people misunderstood the things that he said as doing that. And that's how I am empathizing with them, because I understand that they're coming from that position. But I believe they did not understand his message, that he was misunderstood by those people. Not everybody misunderstood him, but those people misunderstood him and felt that he was dehumanizing them when he was not. Hey, you can disagree if you really want to. That's fine. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate the kindness. Yes, I am speaking my voice tonight. I haven't done a live in a very long time. Yes, we have to be able to agree to disagree. Your average logical thinker. Yes. Allowing someone to do whatever self-destructive thing they choose to do is not empathy. I agree. That would be enabling. Long live Charlie Kirk. What's up, Doc? Hello. Empathy is simply the idea people should share the same feelings with others. I don't care about others' feelings. Well, again, you don't have to feel exactly what they feel. And I think you're being empathic if you even say that. You're like, I think I said that earlier just a few minutes ago, that I didn't grow up in Gaza, so I do not know what that feels like. But I can empathize with you being in a situation where you heard shots firing constantly. Like, I can empathize with that. I don't have to have been in the exact same situation to empathize with that. Yes, you really do need to do your own research and go digging into a lot of his videos and see them in their entirety. But there is your youth, and there is my truth, and there is, oh my goodness, we don't need clarification. He made so many, no, he did not. Yeah. You don't have to seek it. That's up to you. If you choose not to and believe what you want to believe, that is totally up to you. I cannot change your mind. Right, he didn't drink, he didn't womanize, and he didn't have a college degree. He stood up on his feet. That's true. I am not God, but I can say where I believe he went. My PhD is in counseling, marriage, couples, and family counseling. Oh, I don't know if I get to read all of these comments once I end this thing, so I'm trying to get through some of these comments before I go, but my husband is probably like, where is my wife? It's not wrong for a man to have a female therapist. I think that she's got to be very well versed in, the masculine, but not necessarily because she is masculine herself. I do think men need male mentors and male advisors, so that should not be a replacement for it. But there can be a very healthy role for having a female therapist, advisor, coach. I work with mainly men. I work with women too, but I work mostly with men. And the way that I frame it is that I can help them have a healthy relationship to a woman who is healthy, right? Because a lot of men have had bad experiences with women who are unhealthy, unstable, and they don't know what to expect from a healthy woman. And also, I can help you see through a woman's eyes, and through our perspective, and that can be helpful. But I'm also just a very knowledgeable person, and I'm an integrated person with healthy amounts of masculinity and femininity. And the goal is to be integrated. And this is just the way that I, do my work, is based on some of these theories and philosophies. And if you are not integrated and maybe you have too much feminine energy, maybe you have too much masculine energy, there is that sweet spot, and knowing how to cultivate that right balance. And balance does not mean 50-50. Balance means, I use 80-20. That's like the benchmark that I use mainly. So if you're a man, I believe you should be like about 80% masculine and 20% you're going to be feminine. And I know people are going to be like, what? But what I mean by that is to have kindness, to have sympathy, to be nurturing. You see it a lot when men become fathers, right? The way that they are affectionate. That is a feminine trait. That doesn't mean that it makes them effeminate. It just means things are classified from a dualistic standpoint, right or wrong, good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. So I think everything could be seen as masculine and feminine in a way, like the yin and the yang, darkness and light. Like the sun is masculine, the moon is feminine. That doesn't mean we should only have one or the other. We need both. And we need both inside of us too. We need the sun and the moon inside of us as well. That sounds kind of kooky, but I'm just using that as an analogy. And anyway, a lot of people are unbalanced and disconnected. And so you need to get balanced and connected. And that is one way, I think, having a female therapist or coach or mentor or advisor, it could be for a specific thing. And then again, go to your male advisors and mentors for other things and keep that balance. But a lot of times men, they get into bad relationships because they are lacking female connection. And so it can be healthy to have an outlet for female connection that is appropriate, obviously, so that you don't make bad decisions based on this unmet need of not having female connection, right? And that's for another time to talk about it, but hope that answers your question. Trying to scan this. If you need help, then get it. Never be afraid to. That is a very good point. Thank you, Mars, motivated by Mars. If you need help, get it. Never be afraid to reach out and for help and for you to help anyone, even if it's a little kid. Absolutely. Let's make sure that we are encouraging people to get the help that they need. Just vet your therapist, vet your advisors. Okay, Charlie has said multiple times women should not go to college, stay home and have children. I don't know if he exactly said that. He may have, absolutely he may have, because I've said something similar myself. I say, and he may have said this too, I say it depends on when you do it. Like me, if you go to college and get your degree and you work and you defer marriage and family until you're 40, that is not good. I think that it's far better to try to focus on marriage and family younger, and then you can go back to college and you can have a career later. That to me is what he was trying to get at. I mean, obviously he married a woman who had a college degree, who had a master's, and who was getting her doctorate. So I very much doubt he meant categorically women should never go to college. I don't think he meant that. I think it's a matter of that sort of pressure to indoctrinate people, especially women, at a very young age, and for them to be career focused. I think there's a good element to women being educated and making their own money and being independent. There was good feminism, but it's gotten too far, and now we have sacrificed family, like marriage and family, and we need to recalibrate into a more nuanced position about these issues and not see them so much as black and white. And I think this is a really good place for me to end right here, because I want to prioritize my marriage and my family. And so as much as I want to answer all of your questions and read through all of your comments, I'm going to let that go for this evening and hope that you stick around and you join me again for the next one. And yeah, you can always put a comment under a video when I can. So it was lovely to speak to you all tonight. Thank you for your time and your patience and your understanding, and I hope to speak to you again soon. So have a good night. Ciao.